Keith was a bunch of nerves. His eyebrows were shiny with beads of sweat, and his palms were drenched. He loved Jessica, but the idea of meeting her parents was nerve-wracking. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like, and share this video with your friends. It was even worse because she was pregnant. They had discovered the news only days ago and were thrilled. But would her parents feel the same way? Jessica stood on her parents' porch and hit the doorbell. Her mother was the first to get to the door, followed closely by her father. They welcomed the young duo into their homes and offered them refreshments. Once they had settled down, Jessica looked at her parents sitting across the table and began, "Dad, Mom, meet Keith, my boyfriend." As soon as the word left her mouth, Jessica and Keith could tell there was a change of attitude in her parents, but she continued, "We are in love and want to get married." The sheer horror on her parents' faces said everything they felt long before they managed to speak. "Jessica, but he is." "What?" "Black." Jessica blurted before casually adding, "I love him and I'm carrying his baby." "Jessica, how could you go so far off the track? I thought we raised you better than that. This man does not look like he has a decent job, and to have his baby, you failed us." Jessica's mom screamed. Hence began the back and forth. Jessica tried explaining that Keith was a good man and that he would take good care of her, but her parents wanted to hear none of that. Keith attempted to speak every once in a while, but his voice was barely audible amid all the shouting. Jessica's father sat in silence all this time, even as mother and daughter threw words at each other, until finally, "Be quiet, both of you. Jessica, you won't be marrying this young man, and no child of mine will raise a black kid," he said with finality. "Either get rid of that baby or give it up for adoption, or we will cut you off completely." With that, he asked Keith to leave their home and never return. Jessica loved Keith, but her father's words kept ringing in her head. How could they raise a baby without her parents' help? She had no job, and Keith barely earned a salary. She was heartbroken, and even as she watched her boyfriend get thrown out of their house, she knew she was making the wrong choice. But what could she do? Keith made his way out of the estate, his mind blurry and his eyes misty. He could not believe what had just happened. Had he no right to make decisions for his baby just because he was black, because he earned minimum wage? That evening, he sat down at his apartment and researched the way forward concerning his child. He discovered there was a responsible father registry that could notify him if ever his child was put up for adoption. He registered on it, hopeful that it would work. Months later, he received a notice from the registry that Jessica had put up a baby for adoption. He knew Jessica was due anytime soon, but he was shocked to learn she had already given birth and found a foster home for their baby. Keith was determined to raise his baby, who he learned was named Emma. Nothing would stand in his way. He contacted a lawyer and explained his situation. The lawyer asked to meet up and discuss the matter further. The following morning, they contacted the foster home and asked them to halt the adoption process, but they said they couldn't, as the process had already started. This just became a court case. The lawyer turned to Keith as soon as he got off the phone with the foster home. The months dragged on. They were the longest months of Keith's life. The more he and his lawyer tried pushing for him to have his baby, the more excuses the foster home representatives gave for why the baby was better off with them. Keith was almost giving up. It was finally his last day in court. The time for the judge had come to decide the fate of his baby. The chances looked slim, but he still hoped and prayed that the judge would favor him. Deep down, he knew he would be a terrific dad to that little girl if only he could show that to the judge. But soon, he would know his and his baby's fate. As he sat in the solemn courtroom, his eyes focused on the judge, he felt his palms get sweaty, as he had been on that fateful day when all this had begun. When it was his time to speak, Keith stood up firmly and began, "Your Honor, I have never been a father before, but I know for sure that I will be the best dad to my little girl. I love her even though I've never met her, and these past few months have been hell for me. Given the chance, I will show my baby the world and do everything in my power to make her happy and give her a comfortable life. He continued, the tears threatening to fall. I did not abandon my child. I would never leave my child. The circumstance. Before he could utter another word, the courtroom doors opened, and in walked Jessica. There was a commotion as everyone in the courtroom recognized her as the child's mother. She had learned of the ruling from the press and was determined to make things right. When the uproar died, the judge spoke to Jessica. Young lady, who might you be? I'm sorry for barging in like that, Your Honor. I am Jessica, Emma's mother. I came to tell the truth about what happened. Go on. Your Honor, I love Keith, and we planned on getting married and raising our baby together, but my parents threatened me and forced me to leave him and give up Emma. I never wanted to be part of it. Everyone in the courtroom was shocked. No one had believed Keith's story, but now it seems he had been truthful all along. Your Honor, I know Keith, and I know he will be a wonderful dad to our baby, Jessica said. Well then, it appears Keith here was nothing but truthful. And with that, I annul the adoption decision and declare Keith as Emma's legal guardian. Keith was ecstatic. He could not believe this was happening. Just as he was about to give up, the tides turned in his favor. He could finally have his baby girl and shower her with all the love in the world.